possibly prevented Wednesday's deadly school attack. A shocking admission from the Bureau. It failed to act on a tip received just last month from a person close to accused Florida gunman Nikolas Cruz. More now from Phil Keating live at the scene in Parkland. Phil.
Hey, Jesse, new information just minutes ago by the Broward County Sheriff specifically about the accused mass murderer, that many flags, warning flags, were up long before Wednesday afternoon's terror inside that high school. And the FBI special agent in charge down here also addressing today's stunning admission that the country's preeminent law enforcement agency completely dropped the ball with prior warnings. Sheriff Scott Israel now says many clues were out there just in this county alone about 19-year-old Nikolas Cruz.
We have uncovered at the Broward Sheriff's Office that we've had approximately 20 calls for service over the last few years regarding the killer. Every one of these calls for service will be looked at and scrutinized.
In Washington, FBI Director Christopher Wray acknowledging publicly today that on January 5th, last month, the FBI was told by a person close to shooting suspect Cruz about his erratic behavior, love of guns, and specific potential to carry out a school shooting. The FBI's Miami field office should have received that information up the chain of command as a potential threat to life to follow up and investigate. It did not happen. 5 weeks later, 17 students and teachers are now dead, and former student 19-year-old Nikolas Cruz is charged with 17 counts of first-degree murder. FBI Director Christopher Wray apologizing, quote, "We have spoken with victims and families and deeply regret the additional pain this causes all those affected by this horrific tragedy." And Republican Governor Rick Scott up in Tallahassee, who was at the school Wednesday within hours of the massacre, quickly sent out this very terse statement, quoting here, "The FBI's failure to take action against this killer is unacceptable. 17 innocent people are dead, and acknowledging a mistake isn't going to cut it. The FBI director needs to resign." Also getting word from the Sun-Sentinel, who interviewed Broward County School Superintendent Robert Runcie, that the crime scene, the 3-story building behind me, which is known as the freshman building, and most of their classes are there. That's why so many of these victims were just 14 years old. They will never have to return to that building, any of the survivors. It is going to be demolished. Back to you.
Thank you, Phil. All right, Kimberly, this just makes me so upset. We know the full responsibility is on the shooter.
Correct.
But at the same time, if you get a call into the field office in Miami and you know the person is a close person, not a random person, and goes through the list, has a weapon, motivated to possibly shoot up a school, disturbing behavior on social media, and you don't act, what could possibly be the explanation for not following up?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're going to lay awake at night upset and tormented over it. But this is, you know, why we have the FBI, to follow up on details like this, to follow up on leads, to, you know, chase them down to prevent this type of thing from happening. It's not like this is something that is unfamiliar to us in terms of school shootings. And people usually do indicate and show some signs and make some overtures, you know, through communication, social media or otherwise, or do something where they tell somebody what they're about to do. So there's opportunities to be able to try to prevent something like this from happening. And when you think about it, like, this should have been chased down. They should have and could have done better in a situation like this, because quite frankly, all the elements were there. The statements, the intention, the ability to carry it out, the specifics of it in terms of being, you know, a school shooter, somebody who was coming from a troubled background, people who had said that there was, you know, making complaints and saying that this was a disturbed individual. So this is a particular case that should have gotten the focus and attention, obviously.
What kind of accountability would you like to see here at the FBI, Juan?
Well, I think you have to look at the protocols in terms of how they handle these situations so that in the future you don't have a repeat. I'm a little slower. I think the FBI does a pretty good job on a daily basis and has more responsibilities than ever in terms of dealing with terrorism and the like and changing nature of threats to our society. As I understand it, I think the call came nationally and then it was not directed to the local field office. So that's the question. Why wasn't it? And it was 2 instances. In one case, there was some kind of visual screen grab that they couldn't find the address.
From the YouTube
Right,
comment.
and then the second is the phone call
Right.
with that information. So you have two instances. And would that then, Jesse, have been sufficient for someone to put that puzzle together and say, hey, we've got two now on this. Let's look at this. But you got to remember, you got people who will call and say somebody is really a nut, and I think that guy's got a gun. And I know a lot of gun owners and et cetera would say that's unnecessary. They should not be pursuing or interfering with my rights. So it's a little bit of a delicate dance. But I do not understand the governor of Florida saying that the FBI director should be thrown out. I just think they're looking for scapegoats at that point. Somebody may have to go. Somebody may lose a job. But I don't see it as the FBI director.
Maybe not the director, but the FBI does not have a good track record on some of these issues. We had Fort Hood, the Boston bombing, the Orlando nightclub shooting, where the FBI had contact or knew about something and was unable to act to prevent tragedy. How do you see it?
I agree they have to look at all their protocols, and also I would be curious about the sharing of information between local police and the FBI, because the sheriff just said they had 20 calls into the local office about him. So is there a way that you can know if there's a 20 calls into the local office and then the FBI gets a call, is there a way to make that connection?
Yeah,
because
like 9/11.
hindsight is 20/20, and it's easy to, after an incident, to look back and look at all the different places that they missed. But I go back to saying what I said yesterday. I think the FBI needs a lot more resources.
Yeah, money and resources. Greg.
Well, you got to look back. I mean, this is why quick emotional responses to events rarely turn out correct. When you step back rationally, look at what's happening, look back, you find out very disturbing things, and this is very disturbing for a lot of reasons. Number one, I said this before, when you tell somebody if they see something, say something, then you better do something.
Yeah.
Because we're taking a risk. When you see something and you say something, you're taking a risk.
Yep.
That person could come back and get you. And if the law enforcement is not there after they implore you to do this, then what good are you at that point? And I know that it's like you said, it is really hard to chase down leads because 80% of the time, probably 90% of the time, they're just losers in a basement. And we know this working in television. We've all had threats. We've all dealt with law enforcement. I've been in situations where the threat is absolutely real, where the person comes to the city. I've had threats, we all had them, that were nothing. But the point is, it is hard, but that's why they do the job. We're not allowed to do this. We're not allowed to go pursue threats because we would go to jail. It's up to them. If I knew that there was a kid on my street that was getting 20 local calls, that had a large gun, or putting in 20 calls, that was planning on doing this, I can't stop him myself because I could go to jail. So I need law enforcement to do this. So it's hard to find sympathy. I understand that there are mistakes. And it's a shame they were wrong on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say one last thing before we go, which is last night at the vigil, the kids and the police chief were all saying, no more guns. We got to do something about it. We can find a way to solve this problem.
All right. Mitt Romney makes it official. He's running for office again. Next.